Hello my peoples, thank you for joining me today. I am Nancy. This is Nancy's Handcrafted Creations, and I have another video for you today. And sorry to say it's not a gnome, but you're going to love it. It is so adorable that it's very easy. If you can make my gnomes, you can make this. I have sewed it. There is some hand sewing also, but I machine sewed a lot of it, and I'm going to go step by step just like I do in all my other videos. And this is Mr. Moose. If you guys have a name for him, leave it in the comments and I will pick the best one out, and that will be his name. And then when I sell him, I'm going to make these for my craft fairs. I have 7 craft fairs coming up, and so I've been sewing day and night. It's just like I was up till 2 o'clock a couple nights ago making him. It's just hard to stop and not finish it and put it down. But they turned out, I have 2 more to show. They turned out adorable. And he's got his antlers. I'm going to show you how to make everything. I'm going to link the pattern below in a PDF so you can download it and print it out. And yeah, just let me know if you have a name for him. And there's 2 more. The other one I have a name for. And this is the other one. So as you can see, their heads were different, which is fine. They don't all have to be the same. And they won't all be the same. And I'll show you how I made his hat. His hat is very easy. He's got a little scarf. And I'm going to show you, if you guys don't remember how I did this, I'm going to show you how I curl this fleece. And the little acorn I got from Hobby Lobby, I believe. And then I just took some jute twine and just glued it on the side of the acorn. And so I'm going to show you how to do everything. Very easy. This is the cutest one, and she has a name. This is Peaches. I love her to death. She has a little bow in her hair, and she has a little bird. She turned out adorable. I made her this morning, and I finished up after I was done working. So, I did give her eyelashes. I thought she's a girl, she needs eyelashes. So that I'm going to show you how to do that. But if you guys like my channel and you like my content, click on that subscribe button. And when you hit that bell, that will notify you each time I upload a new video. You must have your notifications turned on in your settings for that to notify you that I've uploaded a video. If you already have subscribed to my channel, thank you. I appreciate it so much. For all my subscribers, the last, has it been a couple of weeks, has just taken off. I did have a video that I did have to take. YouTube didn't tell me to take it down, but I took it down. It was my Indian gnome. One person commented and found it offensive, and I apologized. I had said I did not mean it to be offensive, and so I took it down. If you have any questions on how I made that, if you did catch any of it, let me know. I do have a Facebook group called Nancy's Handcrafted Creations, and I do sell what I make. And some of the stuff I do put over on my Facebook group. If you want to follow me over there, I can show you. I do live videos. It's been hard lately because I'm really trying to get stuff ready for craft fairs. But enough yakking. So my Facebook group, Nancy's Handcrafted Creations also. And I do have a Pinterest page, which is Nancy's Handcrafted Creations. And I'm just getting started on that. So let's get going, and I'm going to show you, we're going to make a bigger one, okay? But the pattern is going to be, I have to do the pattern for her, so that will be linked also. But it's the same thing, everything's the same, it's just going to be smaller. But they are so cute, you guys. So let's get going and let's start crafting. get going and we're going to make our mousse. I just love these. Oh my God, you guys, and when I'm making them, they have their personality. They are just adorable. So I'm going to show you. Let's see, give me just a second. So there's going to be a PDF pattern linked below. There will be one for peaches, little peaches, and then there'll be one for the bigger one. And if you want to do a bigger girl mousse, it's going to be the same thing. You're just going to use the bigger pattern and you're just going to make it into a girl. So it's very easy, but I'll probably do a video on that one too. So this is my pattern. And get all my stuff out of the way. So this is part of the pattern. The ear and the foot are kind of the same, and I'll go over a couple of things. This antler is probably a little bigger, so I'm probably going to downsize that, and I need to do the head yet. And then I'm going to do the PDF for Peaches, and she will be on there. Like I said, if you guys have a name for the fluorescent orange or the buffalo plaid, let me know. I will pick out the best one I like, and that name will follow that mousse to my craft fairs. It'll be on the tags when I sell them. So let's get going, and I have the body already cut and sewed, and I will show you how I did that. It's kind of like Grandma Ellie. Give me just a sec. I'm just gonna grab okay, I need so I'm gonna show you on this one. I cut out my pattern, and what I did with my pattern pieces is I printed them out and I put it on a really lightweight chipboard. I thought when I bought this on Amazon I was getting a heavier one, but I did not. I got a lighter one, and it works great for patterns. So I traced that out, and then I sewed. I did more than like a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but I'll show you how I did the bottom. So you're going to cut it out. You're going to leave this open and this open. You're going to stitch up the sides, and then we're going to take and we're going to pin this on, and there's the circle for the base. And I've been sewing these. I've been up late, up early on the weekends, just trying to get ready for my craft fair. So you're going to take the circle after we have this sewed, and then you're going to start. I always start with the seam, and you're going to line up your edges, and you're going to pin it. You're going to want to pin it, and you're going to work your way all the way around. If the circle is a little too big, you just want to make sure it all fits. And we'll find out when I get done pinning it here, and I will show you. But it should be just about the right size. Depends on how big you take your seam on the sides of your body. So if your circle is too big, then you're just going to want to pull it up so it's like that, and then you just cut that off. But when you sew, I've sewed so many of these, and then I did when I do my hats for my fall gnome, I've got like probably 20 of those I'm trying to make. I'm trying to get ready for a craft fair on September 11th, and then one on the 18th. And I have one in October, 2 in November, and 2 in December, so I have 7. So that's how we got that. We're gonna pin that all the way around, and it's sticking out, and that's okay. We're just gonna cut that off. Be careful you don't cut your pins. And you could cut it after too. So we're gonna sew that. We'll go over to the sewing machine. And let's see, I need an arm. And you thought I was prepared, but I will show you on a lighter color. So I'm going to show you on here. This is the arm, and I'll show you how I did it. And you can't see it on this one. I need to find an arm where you can see the stitching. If I have. Okay, you can kind of see this one. This one, this is all it is. I folded it in half, and I'm going to start here. This is going to be the shoulder, just like here. So we want that. That one I did differently. This one is what it's going to look like. So it's going to look nicer. That one I didn't do this way. So I came up with it after I did the buffalo. So we're going to start here. So all the way down, and I will show you on this one. And you won't see, this is going to be the front, because the side seam, this seam is going to be in the back of his arm. So it's going to be back here. And you really can't see this seam up here. We don't take much, just so we can get that nice rounded shoulder. So I will show you how to do that on that one. And his antlers, these are his antlers. This is the pattern, and I'm going to cut it down just a little bit because it is a little big. And I did come up with this on my own. So I will downsize this pattern. And so what I do is I trace it on my fabric, and I just use a pencil. I got my right sides together. So I'm tracing on the wrong side, and I just kind of roughly trace it. I got way too much stuff in the way here. And then I just trace around it, and I leave enough because you're going to want some so you can kind of tuck it in, and we're going to sew that shut. You can use a pen. I've used a pen also. Doesn't matter, it's not going to be seen. So that's what that looks like. It looks big, but we're going to take and go in. This was I drew before. So we're going to take like a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm just going to leave it like this. I'm not going to cut it out, okay? And his head. So I have to do this pattern. I did have another one. When I first made the first one, his head was skinnier. So let me so yeah, here's the first one. So you can make it, if you want to make the head bigger or smaller, just sew in further or cut your pattern smaller. So let me get a piece of fleece for his head. And there might be different types of tan fleece. This one is almost kind of marbly, so it really is a nice color for the moose. There might be something that's maybe grayer or whatever color you want to use. And then I use the brown for the antlers, his feet, and his hands. So you're just going to take your fabric, and then you're going to trace it. And that one's a little big, so we're just going to use the small one. And I'm going to show you with a pen. And if you have the cardboard, you're able to trace around it. Or I have just actually, when I cut out the base for this, I just hold my fabric and cut it. I don't even trace around it. So that's what we have. And we're gonna, actually, I'm just gonna sew on that line. This one, I'm gonna go a little further in, but I'm gonna follow the tracing lines, okay? And then I have his ears. So I did the one already, and this is what it is, but I wanted it to be more to a point. So when I sew, I'm gonna start here, I'm gonna leave this open, and I'm gonna sew, I go in at an angle, and then I come up and round it to a point, and you gotta make sure you come up to the middle of the top of the ear, and then go back down and angle in, okay? And then this is gonna be for the feet also. And let's see if I have some fabric. So I'm just gonna cut this because I thought I had all this, I was doing all this last night, getting everything ready, and some things I forgot. I was gonna do the video last night and it was too late. And so we're just gonna use this for part of his shoe. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna trace, and I don't have, this is the shoe and the ear are kind of the same, but you want extra down here. The way I made the pattern, it was kind of hard to do that because I did it on Canva. I love Canva for editing, and you guys should go visit. It's a really cool site. So I want it longer because we're gonna have to tuck that in for his feet, and I don't think I have a foot that I've already actually done. So their feet, I just glue their feet on to the front. I don't sew them. So we're gonna do 2 like that, and this one is probably gonna be a little small. Let me see if I have a piece of fabric that I can. Let me just run and get a piece of brown fleece. I'll be right back, just a sec. Okay, so we'll cut out another foot. And also when you sew, or I'm sorry, when you cut out your sleeve, I say when you cut out anything, make sure it's on the stretch. Because if you do it this way, you're not gonna get it stuffed. The arms, if you go to put the hand in, and I'm gonna show you, I used a bead, you're not gonna get it. It's gonna be so hard to get that in there if you don't cut it on the stretch. And where's my sleeve? So like this stretches. If I cut it like this, where this was my sleeve, it wouldn't stretch, and I would have to make it big enough. So if you cut it on the stretch, you'll be fine. And I did that with my body, everything. So let me draw my other foot, and then I think we'll be able to go to the sewing machine. And so we're just gonna trace this, and we're gonna leave it longer. So right sides together, and we're drawing on the wrong side. So if you make your if you cut out your pattern from your paper, and then I just used a glue stick, just a glue stick on the back of my paper and glued it to cardboard. This is gonna last you so much longer than just the piece of paper. And I need to find some place to keep my patterns because I'm losing them. So I'm not gonna cut that out. It's gonna be easier to sew if you don't cut around that, okay? And if you want to pin the middle of it, you can, just to keep it together. Like these two are not, it's not folded. This one will be okay. And then we'll do the head and the wing, the antler. And then we're gonna show you this. So we got a little bit of sewing to do. This is gonna be a little bit of a longer video, guys. And I'll show you how I do the bottom, just like I do on some of my gnome videos. So, okay, we got the body, we got the sleeve. The sleeve, when I did it, it matched the body fabric, okay? And this hat I did on this one is like a really kind of a thicker felt. I believe I got it at a rummage sale. And then I do the ears and the head the same color. And little girl didn't have antlers, so there's no antlers with her. Or if I do a little boy, he's not going to have antlers. So we got our ears. I did the antlers already, but I'm showing you on this one how I sewed it. So I have my antlers already. And if I didn't lose one, which that would be my luck, it's in the garbage. Everything goes in the garbage. I don't understand that. And then his hands are just two little circles. You can make them a little bigger. If I would make them a little bigger for yourself, maybe I'll make the pattern a little bigger, and I'll show you, because we're just going to use beads and we're going to use pipe cleaners, so the arms are bendable. So you can move it, and the button is on there so that you can kind of move it. This one doesn't move probably as much as this one. So you're able to pose them how you want. This is so fun, you guys. I just love this. So let me get us set up at the sewing machine, and we'll do all of our sewing. We got our body, our ears, our antler, our sleeves, our feet, and our head. Oh, and our hat. So this is the hat pattern, and that is in here somewhere too. And this is all it is two pieces like this. And there's actually, there's three, so they're all the same. And what we're first gonna do is we're going to take right sides, and this is, I need to straighten this out because it's just a little slanted there. So you're gonna take one piece, and this is the brim, just like this, and you can cut this down because I did. This is really small. But you're gonna sew the right sides together, and you're gonna sew it like this, so that when we fold this flap down, that this is the hat and that seam is underneath. So you're sewing right sides together, so then that seam is tucked under here, okay? Very easy. And then I stuffed it a little bit. So let me get this, and I'm gonna cut this brim because I'm not sure how big his head is gonna be with this hat. If the hat's too small, then I'll make a new one. So we're gonna sew right sides together. So we're gonna do the brim first, because if we sew the hat part of it together, you won't be able to hardly sew that brim on, and it'll be easier, okay? So we got that, we got our hat, and the scarf is not sewed, it's just cut. So let me get you guys over to the sewing machine and get set up, and we'll do all of our sewing, okay? Okay, so I'm back, and I'm gonna get all my sewing here, and I'm using black thread. And when I did the moose, I did it in black, which was okay because it kind of gave, so this was like his mouth. And I don't mind it. I'm not gonna, if I really had to switch color thread, I would, but I don't think it made that much difference. And it worked out fine. Okay, so first let's sew the body. And we sewed what we did first. We sewed up the sides, up one, down. We sewed, I started at the bottom, it doesn't matter. Let me show you. I know I did. So I sewed, I gotta see, gotta back you guys up. So we sewed our sides, and we left, this is the top, we left this open, this is the bottom, the bigger part, okay? So then I took and I pinned in our circle, and now I'm going to get you a little closer. I just got to make sure you guys can see. Okay, so then I'm going to start, I always start by the seam and I try to open it up so it's flattened. And then you're going to start at least more than 1/4 of an inch in, just so you know you have, and make sure you are catching bottom, that circle, and this top part of the body. And when I start out, I don't backstitch because I'm going to backstitch when I go over it. And I don't take my pins out. So I have my hand, I have all of this body part hanging onto that, and I'm turning it at the same time as I'm sewing it. And then when I come to that other side seam, if you have to lift your presser foot and open that seam and tuck it underneath, then do that. That's what I do. And then if you have to adjust, you just stop your sewing machine, adjust it. If you have to lift your presser foot and turn your material, then you can do that. And we'll go over that on some of the other pieces. So you're just going to sew all the way around, making sure you catch both of the bottom and the top. And I don't have a pair of scissors. And then now I'm coming to the part where I started off. And now I'm going to back stitch right over where I started. And let's see, I need to get my bowl for my pins. So now I'm going to take all my pins out. So be careful that you make sure you get all your pins when you go to turn this right side out. So if you wanted to, you can cut off this excess. Sometimes I don't because it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it. If it was a lot, yeah. So you do what you want, and then I look to make sure that I caught the bottom and all of this side. So then when we turn it right side out, we have this, and this is the body. This fabric, I believe I may have gotten it, I don't remember if I got it at JoAnn's or if I got it in a rummage sale. So that's what our body looks like. I don't know if you guys got very good light. I just don't have very good light. I have an aught light, and it's a big one, and I don't care for it. So there's our body, there's the bottom. Okay, so we have that done. And let's do our head. So what you're going to have to do, the bigger part of the head, this bottom part is the where the nose is, this part, okay? The skinny part is the top of the head, and we're going to leave it open. So if you want to make a mark, and I don't have my pen. If you want to make a mark, I would do that. So at that first mark is where we're going to start. Between the marks, you're going to leave that open because we have to stuff it, okay? And I'm not going to pin. And so now when you start at that mark, and I'm going on the line I'm going to stitch, now you're going to back stitch. Because when you go to stuff that and turn this right side out, you don't want the stitching to come apart. And when you come to this little indentation, if you have to lift your presser foot and turn your material or whatever, you can do that. I can just turn my material and I hang on to it and kind of turn it as it's sewing. And I'm following that line that I drew. And now we're coming to the other mark, so we're going to stop. And then cut all your threads off. So there's our head. And we'll trim that and stuff when we get over there. Our sleeve. So you've cut this on the stretch. You're going to fold right sides together. Make sure you have one end that's nice and straight. And we're going to start at the folded with the fold side pointing in. So this is our fold right here, and we're going to start probably about an inch down, and you're going to angle in. Let me get you a little closer if I can. There. You're going to angle in. Let me make a mark. I'll show you. So we're going to start. We're going to angle it in. Oh my goodness. I can't. We're going to angle in like that. That's how we're going to start sewing. So we're going to sew. We're going to start right here and come in. And you'll be able to see once I start with, when I get done with that black thread. So I'm starting at an angle. I'm starting right at that very edge, and I'm going to back stitch a couple of times. And then you're going to sew, and you're going to have to turn as you're sewing because you want that rounded curve. So I hang on to it with 3 fingers and pull it and turn it. And you might want to practice on some scrap fabric. And then I'm taking probably less than 1/4 of an inch seam. And just make sure you're going to catch both edges. And then you're going to sew all the way down, and you're going to back stitch. And this is where the hand is going to go in, where the opening is. This light is way too close. Once I get a craft room, I won't have this problem of setting up and lights, but that's probably a couple of years away yet, until my son finally moves out and is in college. So that's what we sewed. Now I'm going to back you up. So there's our arm. So that's what we sewed. We started up here, went in at an angle, and rounded. Okay? So now let's do our antler. And I'm going to sew this a little smaller than my line that I drew. And you're gonna make sure you have enough so that this can get tucked in, and that'll be on the pattern. And then do your back stitch. Whenever you have to turn something inside out or whatever, make sure you have that you back stitch. Otherwise you're gonna rip your stitching out. And I got my thread caught around my presser foot. Okay, so now we're going to back stitch. And if you get done sewing this and turn it right side out and it's too big, turn it inside out and re-sew it smaller. So I'm just turning my fabric and following on the inside of the line that I drew, and I came up to the point of the antler. I'm going to lift my presser foot. Needle is going to stay down so that you don't move your fabric. You're going to pivot your material, so you're going to come down this edge of that point by the antler. And then when you get to the dip, you're just going to move your fabric so that you can follow the dip and then the hump. And then when you come back down to the straight part, just move your fabric just to follow that line. So if you trace your fabric, your pattern, you're going to have much better luck sewing it on the machine than if you just try to freehand it, because I've did that many times with just making hands or mittens. So this to me would be too big. Okay, and if I already cut it, and I'll show you, we'll turn it inside out. Let me see what you guys are, what you're seeing. And I want to do a live video, you guys. I really, really do. But I got to figure out how to do it. Because all I have is my phone and an old computer. And, yeah, this I'm going to resew it. I'm not going to use this, but I'll show you. So then I would do this and see how big. See, that's huge. Okay. So I would turn it right side or turn it inside out. And I'll show you. We'll just do this so you guys know. Like I said, this is going to be a little longer video. So this is big. So now I'm going to go in probably 1/4 inch. And I'm going to sew just like I did. And some of your fleece gets, and my thread broke. If you guys need a sewing machine, my sewing machine is a Brother. And it's probably 20 years old. And it's had a few problems. I mean, I've had to get it fixed where my, in my bobbin, I had to get that repaired because a needle or something must have hit and put a dent or a mark in my bobbin case. But I have sewed so much on this machine and it has been awesome. So if you need a sewing machine, I would look at Brother. I have not used anything else. I think I grew up on a Singer that my mom had. Or a Viking, one of the two. So now I'm just going to sew about 1/4 inch to make this a little bit smaller. And then I'm just even going to go right up. I'm going to speed this up. Turn it, leave my needle down. Kind of follow the stitch line from before. Go make that hump. And when you get good at sewing this stuff, you'll sew it faster. I don't always sew everything slow. So now I would cut some of this excess off. Be careful not to cut your stitch line that you just stitched because you don't want all this bulk. Otherwise it will be hard to turn it inside out. And if you don't have a turning stick, you need to make yourself one. I really have to do a video on my tools and stuff I use. Okay, now let's say you come to this and this point, you can't get the rest of it out. I don't know where I seen this. You're gonna take a needle. I have to see, make sure you guys are seeing this. You're gonna take a needle and you're going to put it in where that point is and very carefully pull. So you can pull that point out. I'm trying to do this standing in front of my phone and looking at it. So you're going to pull this out with a needle very carefully, not to rip your stitching, so then you can get more of a point. Okay? And then if you have this, like I said, I made myself one out of a dowel rod, and I angled. I just took and filed it down and angled it, smoothed it, and then I just rounded the other end. This is one I bought, but I did it to another one because I lost this for a while. And I use it all the time, you guys. I use it so much. I don't even know. I think I got it at a rummage sale. So there's that antler. And that would be perfect because once we stuff it, it's going to get, this is going to get tucked in. And I'm either going to hot glue some of that or I'm going to sew it. Okay, so there's our antler. And let's do our hat. Let me make sure I got you guys. So this is our hat. This is our brim. This is the front part of the hat. We have right sides together, okay? And we're gonna sew right across the straight edge. And you're just gonna take a real small seam allowance. You're gonna back stitch. I gotta slow my machine down. And when you work with fleece, you might have to push it through your machine, your presser foot. I know I have to all the time because it's so thick, and I really need to probably change my needle and clean my machine. They say you're supposed to change your needle after every project, and I wouldn't do it after every project because I constantly sew on it. So there's our brim. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take the other part of the hat, right sides together, and we're going to sew all the way around this rounded part. Okay, and when you start sewing, if you haven't sewed, there are videos out there. I've thought about doing a class, an online training class. That's probably in the future. But if I sew like this excess has to be over here for me. I can do it this way, but if you're sewing something, you have a lot of fabric, you have to have it over here. You can't have it bunched up in here. So I'm always sewing with, even this little part, my excess is on my left side, on the outside of the machine. So we're going to start, we're going to take and make sure that we have everything lined up. And then we're going to sew just a real small seam allowance. You're going to back stitch. And you're going to sew really slow so you can go around this curve using your fingers. And I'm pressing down and turning it so I'm hanging onto it. So turn that and follow that curve. You might want to maybe cut yourself a couple of patterns of the hat so you can practice. Back stitch when you get to the other part, the other side. And when I was camping this summer, I lost my blade to my cutter on the side, and I really miss it. So there's our hat. Okay, now we're going to flip this side out. Some people would cut the curve. You don't need to cut the curve. It's fleece. And there's our little hat. How cute and easy is that, you guys? I just love this. This is something new. I've not ever made anything other than my gnomes stuffed like this. So they're so cute. Okay, so now we're going to do the feet. And the feet, this one is probably kind of big. So I'm going to go on the inside of this marked line. And we're going to back stitch at the beginning. Because remember, I'm going to take my pin out. And you're going to I grab onto it and I use both hands. If I'm pushing and turning, just so I can turn that fabric and follow that line that you drew for the foot. And then you're going to back stitch when you get to the end. This brown fabric is probably a thicker fleece. One of my thicker fleeces that I've used. And it worked really well when I did Jasper. He is my pilgrim. So that video is coming up. So when I did him, it worked great for his hat because his hat was just able to stand up all on its own. Okay, so we're going to sew the other foot and you're going to back stitch. I'm going to take my pin out. And like I said, you might have to push your fabric through in the very beginning when it's thick fleece like this. And then follow your line that you drew. And then back stitch when you get to the end. And then all we have left to do is sew our ear. So there's our feet, and then we'll cut all that excess off. Okay, so here's the other ear. Let me just draw this so you guys can see. So I'm going to draw it so it's kind of like a point. So that's what I'm going to sew. So we're going to start. I'm going to start here. We're going to leave this open. And I'm going to angle it in. And you're going to back stitch. And we're going to slow it down a little bit. And I'm kind of going on the inside of the line. When you come up to the point, you're going to stop, needle down. You're going to turn your fabric. And then follow that stitch line. And you want your ear, you're probably going to, when you, with the pattern, you're going to want enough so that you can tuck it in. And I think I hot glued my ears and then I sewed them on. Okay, so I'm going to go, we're going to move us back over to the work table and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. So let's get started and we're going to put our mousse together. And what we're going to do first, so I'm going to do a camouflage. And I've already sewed this ahead of time and I have his arms done. And I'll show you with, I do have one that I did not do and one I did. So let's get some rice. And I put some rice in. And I got the top kind of small, so I got to be careful. Give me just a second. I'm going to go over here. Okay, so I put some rice in there. We don't want to put a whole lot. I'm probably going to cut some of this top off. I think it's a little tall. Right about there. And then you're going to take your stuffing and you're going to stuff it really good. And you're just going to make sure that it's all even and there's no like indentations and it's not nice and smooth and looks good. And if you want to sew your body, make it a little bigger first. And then if it's too wide, then you might have to take it in a little bit. And I stuff it all the way up to the top, and then when we sew this closed, I kind of stuff it as I'm sewing it so that I have a good base, because his head is going to get sewed right on top here. And I just kind of go down and push my fingers down in there and make sure that everything is even. Okay, so we got that stuffed, so we're going to set that aside, and we're going to do his head. So you're just going to cut around, you're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch. Don't cut too close to the stitching. And then up at the top here, leave this a little longer so we have some to tuck in and sew shut. And you're just going to trim all that around. So it looks like that. So we've left this where the opening is. And then you're going to take, and I will show you the eyes that I used. So I used, they're animal eyes, is what they are. And these are 10mm. So they're ones that are a little bigger, and then some that are smaller. And I just cut off that pointy part that usually goes in, and then this is to lock it on the inside, but I don't do that. I just hot glue it on, and I just cut that off so it's flat. So those are the eyes we'll use. So you're just going to take your turning stick or whatever we want to call it. And then we're going to stuff this. And I kind of pull my stuffing apart sometimes instead of putting a big old gob of it in. Depends on what I'm stuffing, but then you're going to stuff it all the way down to his nose. And then we're going to sew this shut, and then we'll get everything done, his arms and stuff, and then we'll make sure that we have everything ready to go, and then we'll start putting him together. And if you get the head made, and if you think it's too small for your body, then you probably will have to make another one. Just cut it out a little bit bigger than the pattern. And you want to stuff this really good. Got my one end tucked in there. And I get my stuffing at Walmart in the big bag for $10. So come craft shows, I go through a lot of that, and rice. And I did have someone comment about getting bugs in the rice, but I had a gnome, and I cut it open, and I made it like 3 years ago, and I did not find any bugs in there. So if that's a concern for you, you can use, there's pellets that you can use, that you can buy. So now we're going to, this is going to get tucked in, and we're going to sew that shut. So we're just going to set that aside, and we're going to cut the ears. So you're going to cut about 1/4 of an inch away, and this is the outside. So then we have to turn the right side out, and then use your pointed, when you use the pointed part of this, then you're able to go in without using scissors and poking through your fabric. So when you buy your fabric, I would look at JoAnn's and look in the remnants first, because usually they have like 50% off. I've seen where some remnants are 40 or 50, depends on the material. And then if it's on sale, you will get that sale price after they take the 50% off, like the regular price. So there's our ears. This one's a little on that one side. I think I'm going to just do a quick sew right over here. So give me just okay, I'm back. So I sewed that in because it was bigger on one side, so they're both even. And you can always, like I showed you at the machine, is take a needle and just pull out very gently, and to get your point out a little bit more. And you want to make sure that there's not a lot of fabric at that point also. So we're going to stuff these. I don't stuff the ears, okay? So you can if you want to, but I don't think you need to. So we're done with those, and now we're going to cut our feet, and we're going to cut 1/4 inch. We're going to cut all this excess off, otherwise it's going to be way too bulky. And then you're going to turn this right side out, and we're going to do the other one. These I stuff, so you kind of have to stuff it some. You can overstuff it, and then it will, you know, you'll just have a huge foot. So I've stuffed it, and then I've unstuffed mine also. So I kind of stuff it a little bit. I wait till I get to that point where I'm going to put it on, and then I see if I want it, if I need to take some stuffing out, or if I need to add some. Because when I glue it, it's going to get glued. I'm going to tuck this in, and I don't sew any of this shut. I just put hot glue down in here, and I will squeeze it shut, and then, well, let's just do it. I'll show you. So this is how big his foot's going to be. If you want it longer, you're going to have to make your foot longer so that you have some to tuck in so it's bigger. So you can experiment. So we're just going to take and tuck that in. And then I have a couple of clothespins. You're going to grab your glue gun and you're going to clean the tip, make sure it's clean, and you're going to tuck so those raw edges are down inside, and then I go inside, go down and squeeze some glue, and sometimes I'll just let it settle, and then I'm going to close that up and squeeze that shut and hold it for just a few seconds, and then you can take a clothespin or some kind of clip and clip it on there. And then just let that sit, and then we'll do the same to this one. So I don't want a lot of stuffing in these. I need just a little bit more. We'll tuck that in and make sure you have both of your feet about the same. Take your glue gun and you're going to squeeze that down in there. I need a glue stick. And I kind of let it settle. So that's what I've did. Okay. And then we're going to squeeze that shut. If the glue kind of comes out, that's okay. Sometimes I try to wipe it off right away. And nobody is going to see that part. So then when it's starting to stick together, then you can take your clothespin and put your clothespin on it. If I can get it on there, it's kind of thick. I'm going to use 2 of them. There, so then we clipped it like that, so that's going to hold it. And there we have it. And then when I glue it, I'm just going to glue it right on top of here, and it'll go right there. Or you could just glue this right to the front too, whatever you want. Okay, so we're going to set that aside, and we're going to move some of this out of the way. And then, let's see, his hat is done. And what I did I have my antlers all done. So I stuffed them. So you would just take, because this is the one I showed you, you're just going to take and stuff this so it's really nice and full. You can go a little flatter if you want it. And then you're going to tuck your ends in. And we're going to do a little bit of hot glue again. And you probably don't need a lot. And I'm just going to see if I can take a pin and kind of push that down. Okay, so that's what I did, was I took a pin and tucked that down and pulled it out and then squeezed that shut and then put a clothespin on it. Okay, so I'll show you again. So you tuck it in, make sure there's stuffing is not in the way. So we're going to tuck that in. We're going to put a little bit of glue in there. and then squeeze it shut, and the glue is kind of coming out. So I took a pin and just pushed this fabric down and squeezed it and pulled the pin out. And then just hold that shut. And we'll grab a clothespin and we'll let those sit, okay? So we have those tucked in and ready to go. Okay, so his hand. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna need, I use 3 pipe cleaners, but yeah, we're gonna do it the way I did it. I take 3 pipe cleaners and I'm gonna start twisting them together. I gotta get some stuff out of the way here. So you're gonna twist them together, and you're gonna need a bead, and I lost my beads. This bead is, I think it was about a 1/2 inch. I'm not sure if it's a millimeter. It's about a 1/2 inch bead or so. So it's not huge. And I got my beads at JoAnn's. It comes in a package of a bunch of different sizes. And then even, so it came in with like small, medium, and large, and then it came in with these kind of beads also. And it was, for a big bag, it was $20, and I got it 50% off, which is a good deal. So then when we have that, let's see, I don't have my clippers. So I'm just gonna cut, I got a little bit of excess here. I'm just gonna cut that off. I don't know where my wire cutters went. I think they're in my bedroom. So I'm just gonna cut that off. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this end and you're gonna turn it down like that. And I just kind of roll it. And this is going to go up by his shoulder. And if it doesn't fit in your arm, you can squeeze it. So that's what you want. Okay, you want to just roll it up. You can put hot glue here, which I've done, just so it doesn't poke through and if somebody picks it up or whatever. And then just roll that. So you want this to be long enough so that you can put it up in the sleeve all the way up to the shoulder, and we're going to sew that on. And you want the seam part of your sleeve is going to go toward the back. It's going to be at the back, okay? So this is too long because we're going to take and we're going to put this bead on this pipe cleaner, and then we're going to take some fabric. It's got a slit in it. We're going to take a circle of fabric. So I'm going to cut some of this off. Let's see, where do I want to cut it? So you kind of have to judge. So then I'm going to take the bead and just probably do it like this. Just want to make sure that the glue doesn't go through the hole. So I put a little bit of glue in the bead, and then I'm going to take and put the end of the pipe cleaner in the bead, and the glue will come out. And if you want to put that on your fabric, that's going to help it stay. And then you're going to take tiny little rubber bands. I've gotten these, I think I've gotten them at the Dollar Tree. I believe they have them at Walmart, where all like the brushes and hair accessories are. And then I've gotten clear ones. And if I use these ones, which is what I'm gonna do, I'll use 2 of them. And you won't believe how these stretch. So what we're gonna do is we got this on, and we're going to slide that sleeve up, and we're going to take, and I don't use rubber bands very often, and we're going to rubber band this on. That's why I use 2, because I want it to stay, but I'm going to use thread after, and I've wrapped that around 3 times. I'm just going to try to get that down. Okay, so now we're going to take some thread or crochet thread. Yarn is going to be too big. You could try it. It's going to, if you can get it tucked in the sleeve. So I just want this to be able to hold this on in case that rubber band breaks. So tie a few knots and then cut these long enough. I would cut them 1 inch long or even longer so that we can tuck it into the sleeve. So now what you're going to do, because this might be a lot of fabric, is I just took and cut some of it off, not all of it, just like that, okay? And then you're going to take this, and what I've had to do is I've had to take my scissors and poke this in. If you're, and I think okay, so my pipe cleaner is still a little too long, so I'm going to untwist it, and I'm going to try to twist it a little bit shorter, and then I'm going to put it back in. And you want it so that it's flat. So that the flat part of that circle that we twisted up is flat like this, okay? Don't want it like the flat part like that. You want it flat like that. So now you can take your scissors and take and stuff that hand. And this is why it works good if you do cut your sleeve on the stretch part of the fabric. So if it stretches this way, you want your sleeve to come down cut this way. And I'm going to show you just so that everybody knows. So here's our fabric. This stretches, okay? This is how you would want to cut your fabric. If you cut it this way, this is not going to stretch enough. So if you cut it on the stretch, you'll be able to get it over here, even if you make it too small. So I usually try to cut everything on the stretch when I'm making fleece. Really, it can depend on what you're making, but that's how I do that. So cut it so it stretches the width, okay? So you're going to take and tuck all these ends of your string in, and you're going to try and cover up the thread and the rubber band. If there's any seam sticking out, I have a little bit there, you can cut that off. And you're going to take your glue gun and clean your tip off. And then I lift it up and I squirt some glue in there, and I just keep my glue gun in. I gotta get rid of my, so I keep my glue gun in there, I squirt some glue, and then I turn it until I get back to where I was. And if you have to look, because we don't want glue on his hand. So if that rubber band broke because of the hot glue, we have the string on there to hold it, and then we've hot glued it. Okay? And I didn't, but you can, like I do with my gnomes, is I'll tie ribbon around here, so you could do that too. And then you're gonna need buttons. you're going to need some kind of button that's going to match your fabric, so something that matches. And then I did a red button with black thread. Okay, so we have both of our arms done, and I think we're ready to put him together. So we have his feet, and he's a little lopsided, so we're going to straighten him out. And just make sure before you sew it shut that it stands up good enough, okay, that it's going to stand by itself. And make sure I'm still filming. Okay, so we're going to take, and I've just used this crochet thread. This is DMC, and I think this is older. I may have gotten it at a rummage sale. Look at your rummage sales, guys. You won't believe what you see when you start working on stuff like this and you're making gnomes, and you see something and you just right away you think of a gnome, or you think of your crafts. It just doesn't stop with me when I'm, you know, I love my garage sales and my thrift stores. So, okay, so we're going to, first we're going to sew his head shut. Okay, so I always kind of get my needles threaded and stuff ahead of time, and you don't need very much. So we're going to knot one end. Okay, here, when I am using crochet thread, I don't double it. I will have it one end like this, and then I knot the other end. So if for some reason I mess up a stitch, I take my needle off, I can take the thread out without ripping out everything, because when you use regular needle and thread, you have to double it. But this, I don't ever double. I just leave it just like that. Okay, so we're gonna do that surgeon's knot, 3 loops or 4, and then you're gonna pull it, and then you're gonna cut pretty close, 1/4 inch away from the knot. And let me get you a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so you don't need a lot of thread for his head. So I'm going to go on the inside of right here by the seam. And if I can get in there. So that's why we cut that thread off. So I'm on this side, and I'm going to go to the other side and just take up a stitch. And then I'm going to go across back to the other side. And this will hide it. I mean, I've done this on 3 of them, and it hides it. And then we're going to go back to the other side. So you're kind of going back and forth. And then you're pulling that up. You're going to go back to the other side. This is the invisible stitch. And you're going to keep going back and forth. Okay, I'm going to prop this up because I want to make sure you guys are seeing this. So I'm going to look at my camera. Okay. So we're taking a little stitch, and then you're going back and forth from one side to the other, right across from where that stitch. So I'm ended up right here on this side. I'm going to go right across to the opposite side and pull up a stitch. And as I pull, as I take a stitch, I'm tightening my thread. And now I'm going to take and put, before I fully close it, I'm going to put more stuffing in here. So make sure that it's stuffed good enough before you close up that final hole. And I'm getting my needles mixed up here. So I have a bunch of needles, as you can see. That's my needle. I always. And then you're going to go back and you're going to finish. So you're going to go back and forth until you get to the end. And as you come to this, you got to tuck it in. You might have to use your needle to poke it in. And then go across. And then go across to the other side. And then tuck that in. And then pull. So now what I would do is I would tie a knot. Just like this, loop it. And I'm going to take and go back right through where it's coming out of and just poke it through and come out anywhere in the head so you can hide that thread. And then cut it off. I pull it and then cut it and then it's inside. So now I'm going to take a needle and I'm going to take and push up some of that. You got to be careful with so you don't get holes in your fleece, and push some of that stuffing up this way. And there's our head. Okay. Okay, so let me back you up just a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to sew. And like I said, this is a little bit longer video. So now you're going to sew his body shut. And we're going to do the same exact stitch. And we're going to get stuff out of the way. Then we don't lose everything. So do your knot. Surgeon's knot. 3/4 loops. And if you want to do it again, and then cut that off. Don't cut your knot. And we're going to do the same thing that we just did. We're going to start by the seam. And I'm going to go down a little further because I cut mine, so I'm sure I cut my back stitch off. So I'm going right through my seam so that I can stop it from fraying or coming apart. Okay, let me make sure you guys can see. Okay, I'm going to back you up a little bit. Okay, so take your stitch, go right close to where your seam, where you sewed on the side. And you're coming out on one side, then you're going to go to the opposite side, right across from it. And then back to the other side. So you're going to go back and forth, just like we did. And then when you get to the end, or you get halfway, make sure you have enough stuffing in there so that it can support his head. Oh, I lost him. I was going to try to do a craft fair series, but I just don't think I'm going to have the time. But like some of the videos I'm making, I just unthreaded my needle. some of the videos I'm making, like the moose and my gnomes, they'll be in my craft fair. Almost. There we go. And then when we get done sewing this, we're not going to cut this thread off. We're going to use it to attach the head. I got a really long thread. I didn't want to have to rethread it after I get done with this. So you could make this moose any theme you wanted. Depends on your fabric that you pick. And I will probably do if I do Peaches, I just love her. She's so cute. She's my girl. She turned out cute. So tuck that in, because that corner is in, and I should have stuffed a little bit more. So now what I can do, and I'll show you, because I'm going to take my needle off, and I'm going to undo a couple stitches so I can get some thread, or I mean some stuffing in here. So that's why I do my needle like this. And I got a knot in there. So I'm going to cut that off. So now I got it big enough I can get some more stuffing in here. Because I was talking and forgot about it. And I would like to find, I like my tote bag with my stuffing in it, but I wish I had some place to hang it by my table, and I don't. So I'm trying to figure out something else I can put it in that I can have it closer to me than going back and forth. Okay, so now we got to thread our needle again. And I like to have the longer needles. Some of the really fat needles, like you can see the difference. I can get a hold of them. Like you can see the difference in those. The fatter ones are sometimes hard to get through fabric. So I always try to have different sizes, lengths. Very seldom do I use really thin, the small needles, unless I'm, sewing something. And I'm trying to get my needle threaded again. There we go. Okay, so now finish closing up again. And I tried to do on Peaches, I tried to do a little headband with a ribbon, but I didn't really care for it. And then I thought of the hair, and I found the little bow, or made the little bow, just tied it around some of her hair. The fur that I got, that I used on all of these, I got at Hobby Lobby, and I really like the color of it and the length. And it was, I don't know if it was $20 a yard, and it was 30% off, I believe. Okay, so now I'm going to take, I'm all done. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come up in the middle of the top of the body. And now we're going to sew the head on. So figure out what side you want for the front and the back. Because if it's variegated, if it's different color, I think we're going to do, this is going to be my front. So I'm going to take and I'm going to sew it right on top, right here, right on top there. She needs to move out of the way. So let me make sure you guys can see. So I'm going to poke that through. Okay, I'm going to back it up just a little so you can see. And this, I mean, you're going to, if you were to take his scarf off, yeah, you could probably see the stitches. So if you want to use matching thread, you go ahead. So figure out and get his head the right way. I almost put it on upside down. So make sure you know exactly where, if you want it down here further or if you want it up. So I'm going to do it up on top. So I got my thread coming out of my body, and I'm just going to take a fairly decent stitch. And this will be hard to show you guys without me on the head. And you're just going to take stitches until you get it really secure, and make sure you keep it centered. And then tighten them as you take a stitch. And I'm going to go to the outside edge of the head also. Okay, I gotta look again because I want to make sure you guys are seeing this. Okay, I'm gonna bring you a little closer. So I take a stitch in the head, and then I'll go down and take a stitch in the body. And if I was using matching thread, you guys wouldn't be able to see this, so. And if you keep them tightened, then you're not going to see them. So if you didn't put a scarf on, then you wouldn't be able to see your stitches. So his head is pretty good. I'm gonna go underneath, and I'm gonna come up over here. And don't poke yourself. I'm gonna get a couple more stitches. So right there. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the arms. We're not gonna cut our thread. So that's why I kind of have it long. And you're gonna grab your buttons. If I can find mine, because I dumped my dish earlier. So I have green ones that go with the green in my sleeves, or in my body. Okay, so we got the front of his head, and the seam of his arm is going toward the back, and I'm gonna sew it right up here. And I got his arm long enough so that we can bend it. Okay, I'm gonna put a needle in there. Okay. So what we're first gonna do is we're going to grab our thread, and it's up by the neck. I'm gonna take that down. So I wanna go in the body and come out right at the top where that shoulder is gonna be, where his arm is gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna take our needle out, and then you're gonna take and you're gonna go through, you're gonna go right through the pipe cleaner, and you shouldn't have any problem. And make sure your seam is in the back. Put your button on, and you're gonna go back through the other hole of the button, and I'm gonna go, and you're gonna come out the back of the arm, and if you can take a stitch at the same time and go in the body, and make sure your thread doesn't get tangled up or anything. Okay, so now we went in the body, we're gonna come back out, and you're gonna come out through either one of the holes on the button, it doesn't matter. but make sure you pull that thread so your stitches are tight. And then make sure your button is even. Now you go back through the other hole. You can do this a couple of times. And if you can't go through the body at the same time, then just come out the back of the arm. And then take a stitch in the arm. And then if you come back through that hole again, and then back through. So now what I'm going to do is, you got to have a decent size length needle. I'm going to go from this side over to this side, right on the opposite, and we're going to sew the other arm on. I'm going to try to get it down kind of in the same. And have your needle nose pliers, so if you can't get a grip on your needle, you can pull it with your pliers, okay? Other arm, seam in the back. And I need my other button. And you're going to go right through the pipe cleaner. Try to get it about the same spot as the other one, and then go through the button. I actually wanted to use other buttons. I wanted to use these ones, and I forgot about them. They're sitting right there. But the green ones will be okay. It'll go with his hat. And now we got to pull that, and you're going to go through the other hole on the button and back. Just go to the back of the arm. And then tighten that up, and then go through the body by the shoulder. Just come out the other side, and then pull it tight, and then go back through the button again. So you're going to go through the button probably 3 times, just so this is secure and it's not loosey-goosey and not going to, you know, some kid's going to get a hold of it and tear it off. Oops. And we're going to go through the button. Or did I just came out the button. We're going to go through the body again. And through the button. This will be the last time. This is pretty secure. You can get through there. And then let me think. Here's our antlers and our ears. Okay, so now we're going to come out the back of the arm. And I want to think where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go in the body, and I'm going to come out. Where do I want to do? Okay, let me think about this. What we're going to do is we're going to glue our ears. So we're going to tuck that in, and I should have done this already, but we'll let them sit. So you're going to go in. And if you have to grab a pin to get those down, and then squeeze that shut, and we can take a couple of clothespins, and then we're going to do like a pucker, or like a pleat, if that's what you want to call it. I think one ear is bigger than the other. Yep. So now I gotta try to make these the same size. So you're gonna put the glue gun down in there and just squirt some glue. It doesn't have to be a big gob of it. Enough to get it in there so it'll stay. And then squeeze that shut. Put some clothespins on it. And then what you can do is take a little bit of glue and put it in the middle, right in here, and glue that shut. Okay, I gotta see if I gotta back up. Oh, you guys are okay. Okay, we got moose everywhere. And we got him just sitting there. So you're gonna take just a little bit, not a lot. And you're gonna fold that. And you're gonna clip it. And you're gonna let that dry. And you're gonna do it to the other one. You can take and sew it. I sewed Peaches. I sewed her ears. And I sewed them on, and then I just took and kind of did that little invisible stitch, so I got some little gathers so I could kind of bend them and stuff. It turned out, you guys, she's my favorite. Everything I make is my favorite. Okay, I'm back. When I had been editing the video for Mr. Moose, I had seen that you guys were not seeing how to do his nose and how I did his antlers and his eyes and stuff. So I deleted that part, and I'm going to redo it so that you guys can see what I am doing, because I did not want to upload the video and then get a bunch of comments saying that we couldn't see what you were doing. So this is going to be a two-part video. So the second part is going to be, we're going to totally finish him, and then I will show you how to do how I just did ears and then the eyelashes and stuff, and how I kind of created Peaches, baby girl moose. So I apologize, but there will be the second part coming up after this first one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to join my crafting community and click on that subscribe button, and then when you hit the bell, that will notify you each time I upload a new video. But you must have your settings, your notifications turned on in your settings. If you have subscribed to my channel, thank you for supporting me and being on this journey and being part of my crafting community. I appreciate you guys so much for watching and all the wonderful comments that you give me. It really is a blessing to me to know that my gnomes are loved, and it's hard not to love them. And my moose, you guys, these mooses are so cute. So thank you for joining me today. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.